Well, thank you very much for having me. Good afternoon, everybody. As it's already been made as an introduction, my name is Hamadache, the CEO and founder of a digital growth agency based in London called Formula. Today, I'm going to talk about the death of search engine optimization and ultimately how independent hotels can win in the age of AI search, but also it's sort of relevant for branded hotels too, if we've got those in the audience. So today I'm going to talk about sort of 5 key things. First and foremost, I'm going to set the scene for what's been happening in digital marketing over the last sort of few years. I'm going to introduce you to your most important digital asset that you might not know that you already have. I'm going to walk you through some of the ways that search is changing. And I'm sure you've seen a lot this last couple of days about AI, and obviously it probably dominated the conversation here. Today is all within the context of how customers are finding and choosing their travel partners and hotels. I'm going to walk you through a 10-point plan on how to adapt your strategy for right now and going into next year. And I'm also going to kind of whet your appetite of what we anticipate will happen in the next sort of 2 to 3 years when it comes to customers finding, choosing and booking their hotel stays. So let's set the scene to start with. Let's talk about the role of digital marketing in hospitality over the last few years. The key theme for today, if you take nothing away from my presentation, is this. Search behavior has shifted more in the last 18 months than it has in the last 18 years. Think about that as I'm going through my slides. And so what does that actually mean for brands, hotels? What do we need to do? We need to, how we think and act and towards customer acquisition needs to adapt to. That's something that bear in mind as I'm going through my slides. So I'm going to introduce you very briefly. I'm sure many of you are familiar with the marketing funnel. It's sort of the framework that we've all been accustomed to over the last few years, probably the last 10 years or so. And it works very simply that as time goes by, the level of intent increases for customers. So it starts with awareness, it moves into interest, that interest then moves to consideration moves to intent, and intent goes on to purchase. It sort of suggests a very linear process that as we go through the process, we're getting more and more closer and closer to choosing which hotel that we want to book. So with that framework in mind, and it's still relatively relevant for today, digital marketing has really had 2 responsibilities, especially when it comes to hotels. We need to first and foremost build brand assets that entice, inform, entice, and convert. And we can do that kind of really in 3 ways. We can design beautiful websites, we can curate social media feeds, and we can optimize our aggregator listings, obviously, so we get maximum exposure from the likes of Booking.com and Expedia, but hopefully not too reliant. In essence, the goal for that sort of part of digital marketing has been to kind of really nail that first and subsequent impressions of our brand and move customers down the funnel in that kind of very linear process. So that's number 1. Number 2, very simply, has been to drive visibility and awareness to those digital assets that we've worked towards creating. And we can do that first and foremost through organic means. So SEO, or search engine optimization, as it's been known for the last sort of 10 or 15 years, is obviously the most obvious way of getting maximum exposure on Google. But you've also got social, where you can grow your own social feed. You can obviously then pay for it in the form of advertising, and that comes in many different ways. So you can use search or meta search ads on Google or Trivago or Google Hotel ads, but you can also run display ads and social ads. In essence, you're investing in one and you're paying for the other. And a good strategy generally has a bit of both in terms of driving more bookings to your hotel. So if we distill this down to its most simplest form, and there's a reason I'm sort of walking you through the most sort of basics of digital marketing here, we look at the intent type, we look at how we want to target, so we can target based on behavior, if people are making a branded or a non-branded search. We can target based on demographic or geographic, and we can ultimately interrupt their social or web browsing patterns. And effectively, all digital marketing is just trying to get people from those, when they're making those actions or when they fit our criteria, to our owned digital assets, those being our social media page or probably most commonly our website. Why this is so important for the context of AI is this is where AI is getting in the way. For the first time, really, in the sort of the lifespan of digital marketing, AI is kind of interrupting that pattern for brands to connect and bring to our website so that we can inform, entice, and convert. AI is kind of getting in the way. And so now we have this sort of new digital asset, effectively known as I think is probably more important than your website. And I like to refer to this as your AI shadow. It's the bit when people have made a branded search about your hotel or a non-branded search like hotels in Athens. What they're seeing more and more is this AI shadow. And this is kind of like an interpretation of your brand, and you don't own this. Not in the same way that you can change your website or you can update your social or you can optimize your booking.com page. You don't own this. And ultimately, this is becoming or increasingly, this is becoming what customers see before they even make it to your website. So what does it look like? It looks like this. This is obviously an example through AI mode. For those unfamiliar, AI mode only launched in Greece a few weeks ago. It was released in the US back in May. We got it in the UK, I think, in September. And now it's sort of being rolled out across Europe, and it's in about 200 countries. Google's AI mode is basically Google's answer to ChatGPT. So it's trying to create that conversational dialogue with an AI platform. And what happens when you ask for a boutique hotel in Athens that's central with a rooftop bar, for example, you get a whole load of options with some images, sometimes reviews, and a sort of a 2 or 3 sentence summary that basically explains what that brand is all about. A good way to think of it is it's a bit like your unique selling points, your online reputation, as you can see on Google or TripAdvisor, and also like an impartial critique, as if a journalist has been to your hotel and given it a review, all sort of wrapped into one. And this can take many different forms. So, for example, when I go into ChatGPT and I ask, where can I get the best sushi from in London? It gives me 5 different options. And what we see here is probably the most common, which is a sort of a 1 to 2 sentence summary. This, if you're familiar with SEO terms, is your meta description, similar to your meta description. So your meta description is that bit on Google, that 2 or 3 sentences that you see. The problem is that you didn't write this. AI is interpreting this sentence from what it can find about your brand online. So if we center in on the Arakai here, it describes it as ultra high-end, exquisite craftsmanship, rare, precious ingredients, and also expensive, which is quite a negative term. And I'm sure for all the brand work that the Arakai did, they didn't describe themselves as expensive in any of their brand materials. So that's one version. The more damning version is the pros and cons evaluation. So then I asked ChatGPT, well, the Arakai sounds good. Is it worth the money? And so it kind of breaks down and says, well, actually, yes, it uses a special rice from Japan, and they have very attentive staff, which is great. But it also tells me that it lost its Michelin star, and it describes it as isn't uniquely untouchable anymore. And this is obviously not how you would choose to describe your brand, but these are the sorts of things that AI is finding from the internet and is revealing to customers long before they even see your website. So why is this so important? Why? Because it is becoming the new first impression of your brand. The digital assets we've built and curated and optimized, website, social, booking.com listing, they only get seen if the customer goes beyond this AI shadow. So it's kind of like a gatekeeper stopping or encouraging customers to go and visit your website. So ultimately, how your business is described across the entire internet matters more than where you rank or perhaps how nice your website looks. And to give you a topical example, I asked, again, ChatGPT, where I could get the best moussaka in Athens, and it promptly gave me this wonderful option of Leondi, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly, traditional Greek restaurant. And it's a glowing review and tells me that it's the best moussaka in Athens. What's interesting, though, is these are all positive points in the text, but that image and that image are the first images that I'm presented with, and they are not professional shots. Those are the shots taken from customers uploading to TripAdvisor. So whilst that third one is a professional shot, all of the professional images that restaurant has had is not really impacting that first impression of their brand, which is the first time that's really happened in digital marketing. If you consider that we own our brands and we've been creating these beautiful assets online, and actually what our customers are first seeing is this sort of interpretation rather than exactly how we want our brands to look. So here's my first key point of my session. Digital marketers actually have two new growing responsibilities. In 2024 and sort of in most of 2025, as I've covered, those 2 points are to build brand assets that inform, entice, and convert, which makes sense. We need to drive visibility and traffic to those assets. That's what we've been doing in digital marketing for the last 10 or 15 years. What happens now is that those two responsibilities, and going into next year, they'll still be there. We'll still have to do those things. We'll still have to run ads. We'll still have to build websites. But I believe we've got two stronger responsibilities now in digital marketing. And those are, number one is get recommended by AI. And number two is do everything you can to influence your AI shadow. So let's back this up with some sort of general facts and stats on what is actually changing, and ultimately all within the context of how customers are choosing hospitality. I should probably have said we've got QR codes on every slide. If you want the slides, feel free to use those and you can download all of the slides. So, first thing that's happening is that search is shifting from queries to conversations, and I'm sure you've all experienced this. Perhaps previously you might have searched for hotels in New York, a very static keyword, very simple keyword, and now you're having a much more conversational exchange with ChatGPT, Google's AI mode, or what have you. So you might ask something a lot more specific. What's the best boutique hotel in NYC for couples with a spa and a rooftop bar? The key difference here is that it used to be very much about keyword matching. That's the keyword I want to target, and I'm going to go after that one. Now it's much more contextual and complex. And just to sort of emphasize this point about how customers' search behavior is changing, in London there's a big station called Waterloo, and they have an enormous digital advertising board that runs the whole length of the platforms. In the summer, I took a picture of this, that Google were advertising this concept of search like never before. They're actively spending money on traditional advertising formats to encourage customers to change their search behaviors because it works with their new AI model. And obviously, that's the way the search landscape is going. So the key point here is that guests now ask for very intent-rich requests. So as I use in my example here, I asked for a good hotel for a 2-night stay in Athens with young children for under 200 euros per night. AI tools can interpret multi-layer preferences instantly. So whether that be amenities, rooftop bar, whether that be tone, photos, guest review, price sensitivity, it can pick out all of these things and then make recommendations based on what it thinks is going to be best suiting to my needs. So keyword optimization, as it's always been done, if you've ever invested in search engine optimization, focusing on keywords is just now insufficient because of the way the search landscape has changed. The second big change is that Google is now becoming an answer engine, not a traffic engine. Previously, if you'd invested in search engine optimization, it would have been a case of, okay, these are the keywords I want to focus on, hotels in Athens, and we'd work slowly but surely up the ranks. Your visibility would increase, and so would your traffic, and therefore the bookings. Very kind of simple sort of marketing funnel. The problem is now that these stats are from 2024, which is sort of quite out of date already. 58% of customers or users in America, it's about 59% in Europe. end with 0 clicks. So 37% after making a search on Google did nothing, and 21% made another search. In 2025, that number has actually increased to 66%. So Google is now kind of giving all the answers and stopping users from actually making it their way to the websites to actually look and go on to book. And for those that are familiar with AI overviews, this is obviously something that Google has rolled out in the last couple of years, sort of a summary. Again, it's sort of a version of AI, your version of your AI shadow. The click-through rate for organic search is 34.5% less when an AI overview is shown, largely because Google's actually answering the question for you. So I mentioned Google's AI mode. Again, it's relatively new in Greece. It's relatively new everywhere, frankly. But this is a good illustration of just why this is changing for when customers start searching for hotels. So very similar prompts you've got on the right-hand side, or your left, I should say, is the traditional first page on Google. And on the right-hand side, we've got Google's AI mode. You've got 21 options presented to the user on the left and 4 options on the right. The key difference here is that on the left, you've got 4 ads. You've got an AI overview, which is a version of an AI shadow. You've got the hotel pack, and then you've got the organic listings. The 4 options presented to me on AI mode is based around my purchase behavior, my browsing behavior, and the prompt that I put in. So when you consider that if you'd have just been one of the 21 hotels last year, you'd have got a small amount of traffic from that. Now, if you're not one of the 4, your traffic's going to be massively impacted. So what we're seeing is a small group of hotels that their traffic is going up, but the vast majority are actually starting to decrease. The third big change that's happening is where travelers' search is shifting and fast. So these are the figures from ChatGPT, the weekly active users on the platform. Back in August 2024, there were only 250 million weekly active. I say only, it's obviously an enormous amount. Back in February, that jumped to 400 million. Today, or just beyond today, is about 800 million. So it doubled in the space of about 6 months. Now, I asked ChatGPT to tell me where it thinks its weekly active users are going to be, and I actually think it's quite conservative because the graph sort of slows down a little bit. But it thinks by July 2028, it's going to have between 1.1 and 1.8 billion weekly active users. And you might be asking, well, that's great, and obviously everyone's using it a lot more, but is it really relevant for travel? Well, look at what's happened here. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but this is relatively new. ChatGPT has opened itself up to apps. And 3 of the proprietary 9 apps that it allowed to launch the platform were Booking, Expedia, and TripAdvisor. So we know, obviously, a third of all the apps. So we know that travel is a big priority for them. This only launched in the US last month. It's only been going for about 6 weeks. And OpenAI has been quoted as saying, we expect to bring apps to the EU users soon. At the moment, there are no other apps, certainly to my knowledge, that have been approved in the travel space, but there is lots that have been launched and are waiting approval from ChatGPT, especially to allow direct bookings. But we'll see what happens in Q1. I think just to add to this as well, I want to draw on a piece of research done by Expedia that I think is really relevant. It's a few years old now, but it sort of shows why ChatGPT, I believe, and why AI is going to be so prominent in travel in the future. The Path to Purchase report by Expedia found that on average, customers will visit 141 pages of travel content in the 45 days before they make a booking. So that's an enormous amount of work and research that goes into choosing their hotels, their travel plans. And so ultimately, customers, when they feel comfortable with the technology, as they're increasingly doing so, they're going to be using these platforms a great deal more because it's going to cut down the research time so much more because, whether it be ChatGPT, Perplexity, Google, it's going to know so much more about the customer and therefore present more relevant examples. And interestingly, Perplexity, as an example, has actually beat ChatGPT to it. And you can now actually integrate with Booking.com and TripAdvisor and book a hotel within the platform. So Google, in its most traditional sense, is being very much disrupted. So we've covered a lot so far. I'm about halfway through, but I think it's worth just having a quick recap because there's a lot going on. Key idea number one. AI shadows are the new digital asset every brand has. Key idea number two. There are three big changes happening in search right now. Number one, shift from queries to conversations. Google is becoming an answer engine, not so much a traffic engine anymore. And where travelers search is shifting fast. Key idea number three. These changes mean that AI shadows will grow in importance for a brand's ability to attract new customers. And the role of digital marketing will increasingly be to get recommended, be one of the 4 hotels rather than the 21, and influence your AI shadow. So that's the context. That's what's happening. How do we, as hoteliers, adapt? I'm going to give you a 10-point plan on how to influence your AI shadow, but also how to get recommended by these platforms. The first thing to say is that you should be optimizing your web content for conversational search. We've been building websites in my agency for about 10 years, and what we used to do is a FAQ, a frequently asked question page, and we used to stick it at the bottom of the website on the footer. We just sort of hide it there. It was sort of, it was just something that we just had to do, and we put it there. Now every single page that or every main page that we build has an FAQ section at the bottom. So as you can see on the image, this is an FAQ about dining at this particular hotel. We have an FAQ about stays. We have an FAQs about spa, etc. So thinking about incorporating answer capsules or 2 to 3 sentence summaries that answers the questions that your customers will be asking. And this can either be an FAQs, a frequently asked questions, or it can sit within the body of the text. So as operators, we should be thinking about all of the questions that we get asked daily and incorporating that within the copy of the website. So it could be which rooms are best for families or what's special about breakfast. If we can do that, then we're more likely to get picked up by these AI tools. We should be strengthening machine readability. So there is a thing called schema markup. If you're not technical, all you need to know is this is simply a way of presenting the code of the website so that AI platforms can easily read it. It's always been a strong point in SEO, but it's now got even more weight because of the way these AI platforms read websites. So we should be using schema markup for reviews, room types, pricing ranges, amenities, services, local attractions, lots of different things. So if you've not been in the back end of your website and updated the coding in a long time, now is the time to do it because that's going to give you much more visibility on these platforms. Brand consistency is becoming increasingly important. And this is particularly, some of these platforms are very pedantic. So things like name, address, phone number have to be the same on every single place your business is listed. And there might not be platforms that you get any bookings from, but you just might have a listing there. In the UK, I think it's very similar for the EU, there are 27 different places that Google looks at to decide how consistent your brand is, and therefore how authoritative you are, and therefore how much you're going to get recommended and your ranking and visibility. The other point to make is that your Google business profile is now carrying more weight than ever before. So making sure that that's perfect, 100% complete, all accurate is really, really important now. In SEO, there are certain things, there's normally about 200 to 300 different things that you can do to improve visibility. Alt text on images is one of those things that was always discarded. It's important to a degree, but of all the things, it's really low priority. Now, with the way that AI platforms or AI models, they read this alt text really heavily. So it's really important when you ever upload an image to your website that it's got really decent alt text so that the AI models can pick out exactly what the image is about. And there's lots of free ways to do this. I've just put one example on the screen from Ahrefs. You get a free AI image alt text generator. It's a small and simple thing, but again, it can make things a lot easier for you in terms of getting that extra visibility. There's probably been a theme throughout my presentation in terms of reviews and reputation. I would argue now your online reputation is more important than it ever has been, because each negative review is kind of working against you like never before. Think back to that kind of pros and cons list when if there's a sentiment of negativity, if perhaps some guests complain that the rooms are a bit too noisy or the beds aren't comfortable enough, AI can pick out these sentiments and feed them back to customers, again, before the customers even visited your website. So it's really important that you maintain a really strong reputation. We've got our own platform that allows you to push positive reviews to TripAdvisor and Google and hide bad ones so they never get published online. And also responding promptly on platforms like Google is now really, really important. So again, to be able to just constantly respond using generative AI to positive reviews is a positive for your brand. I can't believe I'm standing on stage saying you need to optimize your booking.com listing, because we've all tried to avoid paying to booking.com as much as feasibly possible. But now, unfortunately, we need to treat our OTA pages and our listings in the same sort of regard as our websites, because OTA content is being scraped and summarized just as often as our websites. So what tends to happen, certainly in my 15 years experience in this industry, we've always sort of had the booking.com listing page set up. We manage our rates and then we never touch it again, maybe update images occasionally. Now what we need to be doing is keeping photo captions up to date and descriptive, because this is all stuff that AI is pulling from to decide whether or not it recommends us. So treat your OTA listings perhaps with more regard than you have been in the past. This is a big one. Prepare for agentic browsing. So this is where the AIs are doing the looking, comparing and shortlisting on behalf of a guest. So what this means is kind of restructuring the website. So what AI models tend to do is they do something called parsing, P-A-R-S-E, parsing through a website. And it's a bit like skim reading. So you pick out bits to get the general sentiment. AI agents do this. And so we need to make sure that our website can be easily read by humans, but easily parsed by AI models. And I could probably talk for an hour just on that subject, but some very simple things that you should be doing. Removing reCAPTCHA forms. So if you've got inquiry forms on your website with those you press a button to prove that you're human, that can go against you now. That was always best practice for the best part of about 10 years. Now you need one that agents can go through as well, because if they can't go through it, they won't read it, and then that inhibits your ability to get recommended by these platforms. We have a phrase, I don't know if it translates particularly well, but we have a phrase where you sell the sizzle, not the steak. It's an old sales adage. And the idea is obviously that you sell to humans, humans buy on emotion, so we must sell all of the benefits of whatever we're selling, not the features. AI works in completely the opposite way. So AI wants us to be talking about the steak, the cut, the type of meat that it's particularly used, the type of breed from the cow, etc., etc. Think about all the features that you have and be really overt about all of those features on your website, because it's looking for those features that it can pick out and present back to its user when it works out whether to recommend you. This is a pretty obvious one. I think technical SEO has probably been around for 15 years. Doing a basic website audit to understand any technical issues and errors and warnings on your website. Again, it's kind of been a part of SEO for some time. But again, this stuff is really important now. The technical stuff could be broken links, it could be duplicate meta descriptions. A lot of the technical stuff that you don't necessarily need to understand can be really going against you. This is an example of a website that we found. Beautiful website, high converting. For humans, it was perfect, absolutely great. But we found 6 errors, 10 warnings, and we fixed it in about 2 days. And we saw 160% uplift in visibility. So all these things that could be going on in the back end of your website that you're not familiar with could be really having a big impact. And one big question that I get asked a great deal of is, can we actually use AI, generative AI like ChatGPT, to write our website content? And for a time, that was a big no. Google says now it's okay. But it has been working with its most recent updates to ensure that it is pushing content that meets this new framework. Experience, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So what does that mean in plain English? Well, we should be using AI to scale our ideas, not just publish faster. And we should be humanizing everything in terms of our content. So whether our tone, our insight, and our expertise. If you have a blog, make sure it's coming from a real person, not just a faceless brand. This stuff can really make a big difference. And make sure that it's really high quality content. That's going to give you the extra visibility. Finally, just my last piece on content, you should be thinking about topical authority. What does that mean? Well, before, in the last sort of few years, you could choose a keyword and you say, right, okay, I want to rank for for best hotels in Athens. And so you would write a blog piece of content on your website talking about the best hotels in Athens. Now, that by itself is not really going to do much. It needs to be consistent, comprehensive, high quality, and importantly, interconnected content all around every possible subject around that area. So the point is that if you're dipping your toe in SEO, if you're doing a little bit, it's probably not really doing much for you. You have to go all in and create lots of content and interconnect to make sure that it's having the impact that you want. Those are my 10 points. I'm going to finish. I think I've got a bit of time for questions at the end, but just to finish, where are we going over the next few years? Or at least this is my prediction. This is kind of where we are right now. AI is being used as a research buddy. Find me this. I'm looking for a hotel here. It's very human-led and then AI-assisted, but sort of all very much sort of in the same approach of marketing to humans. Where we're kind of going and where we are now going into next year is this idea that AI is being used as a personal travel planner. It's not just find me a hotel here. It's I want to go to Bangkok. I need a whole 10-day itinerary and write me that for me. It's AI-led and then human-approved, which is a subtle difference. And this is where we need to start optimizing for AI shadows, as I've talked about today. Going into next year, we're going to be looking at AI as an autonomous agent. So this is where it's very AI-led, but humans are optional in this part. So the traveler would give the budget to the AI, and the AI would effectively select, book, and pay on behalf of the customer, knowing all of the preferences that that particular customer wants. And then where it gets really scary is where we think we're going to be in 2028, where it's AI to AI commerce. What this means is that we're going to be marketing to algorithms, not people anymore, which sounds ridiculous. But I think that's, in terms of where we're heading, that's probably sort of about 2 or 3 years out. What that actually means is that everyone in this audience will have their own agent. Every brand will have their own agent. And those agents will converse and liaise and negotiate, and they will book. And the brand's agent will say, Mr. Smith is coming here. And Mr. Smith will say, you're all booked. This is where you're going. This is your itinerary. That's where I think we're going and why all of this stuff is so important right now. So, to finish, I've got about 5 minutes at the end if we've got any time for questions. Your website is no longer the first impression. Customers are meeting your brand's AI shadow before they ever see your website. Search is shifting from keywords to conversations. AI agents filter the noise, so being recommended now beats being ranked, as it always used to do. Visibility now depends on machine readability. So structured data, consistency, and that word again, reputation, those are all impacting whether or not or how those AIs describe your brand. And digital marketing must evolve from driving clicks to training your shadow with the right signals, content, and reviews. And personally, I think that every brand right now should be future-proofing. Modern SEO, or it used to be search engine optimization, now it's more probably apt to say search everywhere optimization, has never been more important for hospitality brands. Think you want to be one of the 4 rather than the 21, using that example. We should start optimizing now for the customer you'll never meet because their AI agent booked for them. In the next few weeks, we're going to be launching a platform called Score Plan, which will allow you to give you one simple score to understand your brand's visibility and one plan to increase and optimize it. It's going to allow us to track, optimize your AI shadow. It will track your whole visibility online, and it will give you a personalized action list to drive growth. We're going to be offering it free to a few hoteliers before Christmas, and we're officially launching in January next year. So if you want to join our wait list and hear about it, use the QR code and you can register interest and see what it's all about. And again, that will be offered for free to a few founding members. I think we've got a few minutes for questions, so I'll take any, and thank you for listening.
Υπάρχουν ερωτήσεις?
Hello.
Hello.
And thank you. Do you think AI is going to check our social media, or it has nothing to do with our social media? Will AI check also our social media in the future?
Without question, yes. Yeah, AI is scraping everything. So everywhere your business is represented online, it's looking at your social media, it's looking at your website, it's looking at your booking.com page. And also on social media, it's worth noting that Instagram posts back in July became indexable by Google for the first time ever. So now, what used to happen, it was all very much about recency. So you'd post once and then it would sort of die. Now we're seeing posts from 2-3 years ago that had a lot of engagement being listed in search engines. So it's a good practice to go through your social media posts on Instagram and see which ones were really engaging and optimize those. So social media is now kind of part of SEO.
Thank you.
Hello. So first of all, great presentation.
Thank you.
So my question is, you showed us a slide that was comparing a Google search that we do now, which shows a summary and then the Google search ads, and then the AI tool that gives us from 21 to 4 options. So my question is, how is this going to affect the Google search ads, or will Google search ads adapt to AI tools now?
Yeah, good question. So we don't know what's happening in terms of ads. ChatGPT say they're going to release ads in 2026, but they haven't made any sort of promises on specific dates. Google will ultimately do something similar. You know, Booking.com is its #1 customer on the planet, so it's not going to cannibalize its own ad revenue just so it can offer a better experience to customers. But I think what we're going to start seeing is on AI mode, ads or some variation of ads will start appearing. Interestingly, only in the last sort of 2 weeks, you might have seen the ad sort of label removed from the paid search ads. It now just said sponsored ads, and the paid search ads look very similar to organic. So this is me being a bit cynical, but I think they're just trying to get as much money at the moment because people don't know it's an ad, so they're clicking as much as possible. So I think in answer to your question, I think an advertising platform will be launched at some point, but I think they're waiting until they've got a bigger usage across the internet.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Theodosis. Congratulations on the presentation, first of all. In, let's say, old school marketing, we had the unicorn was user-generated content and engagement, of course. You always had that. Digital marketing didn't change that much, and now we have AI, and it seems that user-generated content, including reviews and anything else in social media, is pretty much the most important and the most robust information that the AI is going to scrape. So should we be mainly focusing on that and just, if we're on a limited budget, of course?
Yeah, I think the bit that you touched on something at the end there with the limited budget piece. I've been in this industry now for 15 years, and the challenge is it's always been difficult, and you have a finite resource. What do you put your money and resource into? Because you could very quickly spend everything. The problem is that digital marketing is broadening now, and you're absolutely right. User-generated content and specifically reviews and your online reputation now carries an enormous amount of weight because it's impartial. So AI's, again, thinking they're trying to provide the best answer to their users with very little regard to the brand. With limited resources, I would be maximizing your opportunity to grow your reputation, push more positive reviews to Google and TripAdvisor. If you can only respond in one place, do it on Google, not TripAdvisor. But I would also be creating and updating content on your own website as much as possible. Because if you've got a website that hasn't been touched for 5 years, that's really going to go against you in terms of whether you're recommended. So try and do everything is the short answer.
Thank you.